It's 2 a.m. Your bloodshot eyes stare at the laptop screen. Just one more hour, you mutter, gulping down coffee that stopped working 2 cups ago. We've all been there, trapped in the biggest lie of our time, that success comes from pushing harder, grinding longer. But what if I told you that trying harder is exactly what's keeping you stuck? Shocking, right? This completely contradicts our hustle culture that glorifies burnout as a badge of honor. But here's the truth. Your brain has an untapped superpower that activates precisely when you stop forcing things. Neuroscience now confirms what ancient wisdom has known for centuries. Your most brilliant solutions, creative breakthroughs, and aha moments happen when you step away from the grind, not when you double down on it. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal how top performers across every field, from billion-dollar entrepreneurs to elite athletes, access this hidden mental state that makes success feel effortless. You'll discover why your brain works against you when you push too hard, and the simple shift that can change everything. This isn't about working less. It's about working in alignment with your brain's natural genius. If you've ever felt stuck despite giving 110%, hit that like button right now and drop burnout in the comments. Let me know I'm not the only one who's been trapped in the effort cycle. Now let's unlock the science behind why less force creates more results. All right, so we've all agreed that ditching the grind isn't lazy, it's smart. But to really understand why, we need to pop the hood and look at what's happening to your brain when you're forcing it day after day. This isn't just about feeling tired, this is about biology. Think of your brain as a high-performance engine. You can absolutely redline it, push it to its absolute limit for a short burst. You need to pull an all-nighter to meet a critical deadline? Your brain can do that. But our hustle culture is telling us to keep the engine in the red 24/7. And any mechanic will tell you what happens when you do that. The engine overheats, parts start to warp, and eventually the whole thing just seizes up. That's precisely what's happening inside your skull. When you're in grind mode, your body is marinating in a stress hormone called cortisol. Now, in the short term, cortisol is your friend. It's the fight or flight juice that gives you the energy to deal with an immediate threat. The problem is, your brain's ancient wiring can't tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and an overflowing email inbox. To your nervous system, they're both threats that require an emergency response. This constant low-grade emergency puts your brain into a state of chronic stress. And this stress is especially toxic to the most important part of your brain for success, the prefrontal cortex, or PFC. Think of the PFC as the CEO of your brain. It handles your long-term planning, your impulse control, your complex decision-making, and your ability to focus. It's the part of you that chooses to work on your business plan instead of watching cat videos. But when that CEO is constantly drenched in cortisol, it starts to shut down. This is what neuroscientists call PFC burnout. Your brain's command center goes offline. You find yourself rereading the same sentence 6 times. You make silly mistakes. You get irritable and snap at your family over nothing. That's not a character flaw. That's your brain's CEO on forced sick leave. This leads directly to decision fatigue. Your ability to make good choices is a finite resource, like a battery. Every decision you make, from what to wear to how to structure a multi-million-dollar deal, drains that battery. Chronic stress drains that battery at a catastrophic rate. This is why, after a day of grinding, you can't even decide what to watch on Netflix. Your decision-making circuits are fried. In fact, this state of chronic stress literally begins to rewire your brain, making it harder to feel joy and resilience. So when you're trying to push through, you're not a hero. You're a pilot trying to fly a plane while the cockpit is on fire. You're flooring the gas pedal in a car that's already overheating. The answer isn't more force. The answer is to learn how to switch gears. And that brings us to the most exciting part. What if there was a way to perform at your peak, not by redlining the engine, but by finding a state of such perfect efficiency that it feels like you're not even trying? There is. And it's an ancient secret that modern science is just beginning to prove. So, what is this ancient secret I hinted at? This state of peak performance that feels like you're not even trying? It comes from a timeless piece of wisdom, a concept called Wu Wei. Now, before your brain, conditioned by our hustle and grind culture, dismisses this as some new age fluff, let's get brutally honest about what Wu Wei is not. It is not laziness. It is not passivity. It is absolutely not sitting on the couch and waiting for $1 million to manifest. That's a complete misunderstanding, and frankly, it's why most high achievers hear the term and immediately tune out. The real meaning of Wu Wei is far more dynamic and powerful. The best translation is effortless action or spontaneous right action. It's the art of acting in perfect harmony with the natural flow of things, where your actions are so aligned with the situation that they feel like they happen through you, not by you. You've probably felt a flicker of this yourself. Think about a time you were trying to solve a problem, maybe writing a difficult email or trying to fix a line of code. You struggled, you forced it, you got up, walked away. And then, while you were making a coffee, the perfect sentence or the elegant solution just popped into your head, fully formed. That flash of insight, that moment of effortless clarity, that's a taste of Wu Wei. But to see it in its full power, let's use my favorite metaphor. The master surfer riding a monster wave. The surfer doesn't try to stop the wave. They don't try to push it or control it. That would be insane. They'd be crushed instantly. Instead, the surfer spends all their energy understanding the wave. They feel its rhythm, its power, its direction. And then, with immense skill born from thousands of hours of practice, they place themselves in the exact right spot to ride its incredible energy. They harmonize with a force much greater than themselves. They don't fight the wave. They dance with it. That is the essence of Wu Wei. It's not inaction. It's the highest form of action, an intelligent, skillful harmony with reality. It's about letting go of that tight-fisted, white-knuckled need to force and control every single outcome. It's about trusting a deeper, more intuitive intelligence to guide you. But this raises a critical question. If the key is to let go of that controlling, micromanaging part of our mind, what exactly is that part? And why is it so damn hard to get it to be quiet? As it turns out, this isn't just an ancient Eastern puzzle. A revolutionary thinker in the West, a true pioneer of psychology, discovered his own bridge to this very same idea. He gave that controlling voice a name, and more importantly, he gave us a map to finally move beyond its grip. That frantic voice in your head, the one that's your harshest critic, your most anxious micromanager, the one constantly telling you to try harder, push further, and never, ever stop. What if I told you it isn't the real you? What if it's just a tiny, terrified part of you that's been holding the microphone for way too long? A century ago, a rebel psychologist, a true pioneer who wasn't afraid to look into the shadows of the human mind, became obsessed with this very idea. He built a bridge from our modern Western way of thinking to this ancient wisdom. His name was Carl Jung. Jung gave that micromanaging CEO in your head a name, the Yang ego. Now, we throw the word ego around to mean arrogance, but for Jung, it was far more profound. The ego is your conscious identity. It's the I you present to the world. It's your job title, your social media profile, your list of accomplishments. It's the part of you that lives in constant fear, whispering, I have to control this outcome, and what will they think of me? The ego is necessary. It helps you file your taxes and remember your name. But Jung discovered a critical life-altering catch. The ego is not the whole story. It's just the tip of a colossal iceberg. Beneath the choppy surface of your conscious mind, Jung said, lies something vast, ancient, and deeply intelligent. He called it the self, with a capital S. The self is the totality of who you are. It's your conscious mind, your unconscious mind, your deepest instincts, and your untapped potential, all integrated into one complete system. If the ego is the frantic captain barking orders on the deck of a ship, the self is the captain, the ship, and the entire ocean it sails on. And here is where it all locks into place. Think of a brilliant musician trying to write a masterpiece. Her ego sits down with the guitar, armed with music theory, pressure to create a hit, and the fear of failure. It forces her fingers into complex scales. It analyzes every note. It tries to construct genius. The result? The music is technically perfect, but it's cold, lifeless. It has no soul. It's the sound of someone trying too hard. This is the ego trying to push the wave. Frustrated, she puts the guitar down. She walks away. She lets go of the outcome. Later, she picks up the instrument with no agenda, just to play. and suddenly her fingers start to move on their own. A melody, more beautiful and complex than anything her conscious mind could have constructed, just flows out. It happens through her. That is the self taking the lead. That is Wu Wei. The ego's desperate need for control actively blocks the deeper, quieter, and far more powerful wisdom of the self. The journey to bridge this gap, to teach the ego to get out of the way, was what Jung considered the ultimate purpose of life. It's not about destroying the ego. It's about a promotion. The ego gets to stop being the stressed-out, micromanaging CEO and becomes a trusted advisor to the true chairman of the board, the self. This is the Western psychological map for Wu Wei. It's learning to ride the waves of life instead of trying to command the ocean. It's what the great Bruce Lee meant when he famously said, "Be like water." Water doesn't struggle. It flows. It can crash with immense power or trickle with quiet persistence. It adapts, surrendering its form to find its path. That is the self in action. So now we have this incredible parallel, an ancient Eastern philosophy and a revolutionary Western psychological framework pointing to the exact same truth. Let go of the part to access the whole. But what if I told you this isn't just philosophy anymore? That in the last 20 years, neuroscience has actually found the physical networks in your brain that make this all possible. What's actually happening inside your skull when the ego goes quiet and this deeper intelligence takes over? Well, it turns out our brains are literally wired for this, and that's exactly where we're going next. So let me ask you this. Where do your best ideas come from? I'm willing to bet it's not when you're staring at a spreadsheet, forcing your brain to come up with an answer. I bet it's in the shower, or driving on the freeway, or walking your dog. That moment when you finally stopped trying, and bam, the solution, the perfect melody, the killer insight just lands in your head, fully formed. For centuries, this was the language of poets and philosophers. But now, thanks to modern neuroscience, we can actually peek under the hood. By sliding someone into an fMRI scanner, we're not watching thoughts in real time. That's a bit of an oversimplification. But we can see the next best thing. We can map which parts of the brain light up by tracking the flow of blood, which is a proxy for neural activity. We can see the patterns unfold. For years, scientists thought the brain just went quiet when we weren't focused on a task. But they were wrong, dead wrong. When you stop focusing, your brain doesn't shut down. It switches on a completely different and in many ways, far more powerful system. They call it the default mode network, or the DMN. Think of it as your brain's creative daydreaming mode. When you're in grind mode, you're using a specific set of tools for a specific job, like a spotlight in a dark room. But when you relax and let your mind wander, the DMN lights up the entire room. It's a vast network that connects distant, seemingly unrelated parts of your brain, your memories, your future hopes, your understanding of others, your hidden knowledge. It's the brain's master connector. The DMN is the neurological home of the aha moment. While your conscious ego is stuck on the one obvious failing solution, the DMN is in the background, rummaging through the entire archive of your life. It's connecting that random documentary you watched 5 years ago with a problem you're facing at work today. It's blending the feeling of a past success with the logic of a current challenge. It's doing the deep creative work that your stressed-out, hyper-focused mind simply cannot access. And this is the neurological framework that gives Wu Wei a home in modern science. This is the biological parallel to that ancient wisdom. When you let go, you are not being passive. You are not giving up. You are making a strategic choice to switch from the narrow brute force spotlight of the ego to the expansive creative floodlight of the default mode network. You are literally getting out of your own way and allowing a more brilliant part of your brain to take over. This network is the source of those sudden, brilliant flashes of insight, the aha moment. But here's the million-dollar question. What if you could do more than just wait for a lucky flash? What if you could intentionally step into a state where this effortless genius isn't just a moment, but a continuous, immersive experience? A state where you become so absorbed in an activity that time itself seems to melt away and your performance goes through the roof, all without a sense of struggle? Well, such a state exists. Neuroscientists have studied it, and they found it has its own unique signature in the brain. They call it flow. All right, so we've all heard of it, maybe under different names. Being in the zone, on fire. That feeling when you're so locked into what you're doing that the rest of the world just fades away. A musician lost in a solo, a coder seeing the matrix, a basketball player who can't miss a shot. That state has a scientific name, flow. And it's the modern, measurable proof of the power of Wu Wei. It's what effortless action feels like from the inside. But what is that really? What is actually happening in your brain when you slip into that state of peak performance? For a long time, we thought you were just more focused, that your brain was turned up to 11. But the truth, backed by hard neuroscience, is the exact opposite. It's not about adding more. It's about taking something away. The key neurological signature of the flow state is a phenomenon called transient hypofrontality. Now, that sounds complicated, right? But stick with me, because it's actually incredibly simple, and it's the key to everything. Let's break it down. Transient means temporary. Hypo means less or reduced activity, and frontality refers to the front part of your brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex, or PFC. Remember the PFC? That's the part of your brain we talked about earlier, the CEO that gets fried by stress. It's also your inner critic. It's the voice that says, "Are you sure about that? What will they think? Don't mess this up. Remember what happened last time?" It's constantly calculating, planning, judging, and second-guessing. It's the neurological home of your ego. So, transient hypofrontality means that during flow, your prefrontal cortex, your inner critic, temporarily quiets down. It goes offline. The micromanager leaves the room, and the team of experts can finally do their job without interruption. And this isn't just a psychological theory, it's a measurable biological event. Using neuroimaging tools like fMRI and EEG, scientists can literally watch this happen. They can see the prefrontal cortex power down as someone enters the flow state. This is the hard evidence. This is the science proving that less is more. Peak performance, creativity, and effortless action don't happen when you're trying harder. They happen when the part of your brain that tries literally gets out of your own way. You stop calculating and start creating. You stop judging and start doing. You stop forcing the shot and just let it fly. The struggle disappears because the part of your brain responsible for the feeling of struggle has taken a coffee break. So we've seen that the secret to flow isn't turning your brain up to 11, but turning a specific part of it, your inner critic, down. That's transient hypofrontality. But now let's add another layer of proof, something you can almost feel. What is the actual electrical frequency, the vibration of your brain, when it's in these different states? Think of your brain as a radio, constantly broadcasting electrical signals on different frequencies, which we can measure with an EEG. When you're in that classic hustle mode, caffeinated, anxious about a deadline, your mental browser has 50 tabs open. Your brain is humming with high-frequency wow beta waves. Beta is the frequency of active, conscious thought. It's great for a spreadsheet, but it's also the frequency of stress, overthinking, and anxiety. It's the sound of your ego trying to control everything. It's the buzz of forcing it. Now contrast that with a completely different frequency, alpha waves. Alpha waves are slower, more rhythmic. This is the brainwave state you enter during light meditation or when you're just gazing out a window, lost in a pleasant daydream. It's a state of relaxed, wakeful alertness. And here's the crucial part. Neuroscientists have found that states of flow, those aha moments, and the feeling of Wu Wei are all characterized by a dominant presence of alpha waves. This is the physical signature of effortless action. When your prefrontal cortex quiets down, your brain's electrical rhythm literally shifts gears. Now your brain is always producing a mix of these frequencies. But the key is, which one is dominant? It's impossible for the frantic high-alert static of beta to be running the show while you simultaneously experience the calm, creative insight of alpha. One has to give way to the other. So that feeling of letting go isn't just a metaphor. It's a measurable shift in your brain's operating system. The feeling of Wu Wei isn't just in your head. It has a real physical frequency. It's the sound of your brain finally getting out of its own way. It sounds like alpha. But this is more than just a fascinating piece of science. It gives us a concrete biological target. It raises the most important question of all. If we know the exact brainwave state for effortless action and peak creativity, can we learn to tune into it deliberately? Can we consciously shift from the stressful noise of beta to the creative hum of alpha on command? The answer is yes, and the methods for doing it are surprisingly simple. So how do you actually use this? How do you flip that switch from the stressful static of beta waves to the creative hum of alpha? Especially when you have a packed schedule, a demanding job, and a to-do list that never ends? It's not about some 2-week silent retreat. It's about small, targeted shifts in your daily routine. So let's get brutally practical. Here are 3 simple, science-backed exercises you can start using today to get out of your own way and let your brain's best self do the work. First up is what I call the productive pause. This is your kill switch for overthinking and your direct line to those creative alpha waves. Before you start a big task, before you make an important decision, or the moment you feel yourself starting to force things, just stop for 5 minutes. That's it. No phone, no podcasts, no productive multitasking. You can sit at your desk and stare out the window or take a slow walk around the block. The key is to intentionally do nothing. But what you're actually doing is highly strategic. You are deliberately disengaging your prefrontal cortex, that frantic micromanaging part of your brain, and giving your default mode network the quiet space it needs to connect the dots. You're creating a runway for an aha moment to land. Think of it as rebooting your brain's operating system from the anxious buzz of beta to the calm, creative hum of alpha. Second, you need to starve your inner critic. I call this exercise focus on the process, not the prize. This is a powerful mental switch. Our ego is obsessed with the outcome, the grade, the sale, the promotion. That obsession is the fuel for your inner critic, and it keeps you locked in anxiety. So you're going to starve the critic by taking away its target. Pick any task, even something as mundane as washing the dishes. Instead of thinking, I need to get these done, shift your entire focus to the process itself. Feel the exact temperature of the water on your hands. Hear the sound of the sponge on the plate. Notice the rhythm of your movements. When you do this, it's very hard for your brain to judge the success or failure of simply feeling warm water. You're tricking your prefrontal cortex into quieting down. This is transient hypofrontality in action. Now apply this to your work. Instead of obsessing over finishing the report, focus only on crafting one perfect sentence. The quality of the outcome will become a byproduct of the quality of your attention, not the object of your stress. Third, and this one is the most powerful once you get the hang of it, is to listen to the nudge. Throughout your day, your deeper intelligence, yourself, your DMN, is constantly sending you little packets of information. It's not a booming voice from the heavens, it's a subtle nudge, a sudden quiet impulse to call an old friend, a weird gut feeling that you should take a different route to work, a fleeting idea for a project that seems to come from nowhere. Our logical, ego-driven mind is trained to dismiss these as random, inefficient, and illogical. The exercise is simply to start noticing them. You don't even have to act on them at first, just acknowledge them. That's interesting. I just had a random urge to reread that one book. What you're doing is validating the signal. You're telling your own deep intelligence, I hear you. These nudges are the memos being delivered from your brain's aha network. The more you listen, the clearer and more useful the signal becomes. You start rebuilding trust in the genius system you were born with. All right, let's talk about the big one. The great paradox that ties everything we've discussed together. It's the idea that to achieve more, to be more successful, more creative, and more effective, you have to let go of trying so hard. I know, it sounds completely bonkers. It goes against everything we've been taught about hustle, grit, and pushing through. But by now, you understand the science. You know that trying harder is often just the sound of your prefrontal cortex, your ego, spinning its wheels in a high-stress beta wave state, burning fuel, but going nowhere. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's a strategic move to quiet that frantic, micromanaging part of your brain so that the real powerhouse, your default mode network, your creative problem-solving subconscious, can finally get to work. Let's look at this in the real world. We're seeing this play out right now with the AI boom. There's a startling statistic that something like 91% of AI projects in the corporate world fail to meet their goals. Why? A big reason is what happens when you try to force a system to do something it's not designed for. Imagine a tech founder obsessed with using a creative AI to manage his company's logistics, a task that requires rigid, step-by-step logic. He spends weeks force-feeding it spreadsheets, writing increasingly angry and complex prompts, trying to bend the machine to his will. He's trying to control every variable. And what does he get? The AI hallucinates shipping routes, invents non-existent warehouses, and generates beautifully written but completely nonsensical reports. His ego is in full-blown panic mode, and his team is burning out trying to clean up the mess. The project is a monument to forced control. Now, contrast that with a seasoned jazz musician stepping onto the stage for a solo. She has put in thousands of hours of practice. She knows the theory, she knows her instrument inside and out. The work has been done. But in the moment of performance, she lets go. She isn't consciously thinking, okay, now I'll play a B-flat scale with a flattened fifth. That's the micromanager. Instead, she listens to the bass player, feels the energy from the crowd, and allows the music to flow through her. Her prefrontal cortex goes quiet, transient hypofrontality, and her years of practice, her deep musical knowledge, all stored across her brain, are seamlessly integrated by her DMN. The result is a performance that's alive, breathtaking, and utterly unique, something that could never be achieved by rigidly following a script. She didn't force the masterpiece. She created the conditions for it to emerge. This isn't just about art or business. Think about sports. The basketball player who is overthinking every shot, calculating the angle, worrying about the score. He's the one who bricks it. The player who's in the zone isn't thinking at all. His body just knows what to do. He's flowing with the game. It's true in our relationships too. Ever been on a date or in a conversation where you tried to force a connection? You planned your talking points. You worried about what to say next. You tried to be charming. It always feels awkward and inauthentic, right? The best relationships happen when you stop trying to manage the outcome and just listen, respond, and be present. You let go of the script and allow a real connection to form. Letting go doesn't mean being passive. The jazz musician practiced. The successful leader sets a clear vision and hires the right people. But then they trust the process. As an article in Inc. magazine points out, they take what experts call a strategic pause, which allows the brain to process information and find novel solutions. They might even engage in what productivity expert Tiago Forte calls structured procrastination, where they deliberately switch to another task to let their subconscious mind work on the first one in the background. This is the great paradox in action. The surrender of rigid, conscious control is precisely what unlocks a higher level of performance. You stop trying to push the river, and instead, you learn to read the currents and steer your boat. And so we arrive at the end of our journey, back where we started, but seeing the world in a completely new way. We began in the dark, at 2 a.m., trapped in the burnout epidemic, believing the lie that the only way forward was to try harder. We dismantled that lie piece by piece. We saw how grind mode floods our brain with cortisol, shutting down our prefrontal cortex, the very part we need for smart decisions. We then traveled back in time to discover an ancient answer in Wu Wei, the profound art of effortless action. We bridged this timeless wisdom to modern psychology with Carl Jung's map of the conscious ego versus the totality of the self, and then catapulted into the 21st century. Here, neuroscience showed us the physical reality of these ideas, the brain's incredible default mode network, our built-in aha moment generator, and the state of flow, which isn't about adding more effort, but about quieting our inner critic through transient hypofrontality. We even learned to hear the sound of this state in the calm, creative hum of alpha waves. What all of this science, all of this ancient wisdom is screaming at us is one simple revolutionary truth. Stop fighting your brain. It was never designed for the relentless brute force grind we put it through. That feeling of struggle, of forcing it, of pushing a boulder uphill, that's an error message. It's your system telling you you're using the wrong tool for the job. Wu Wei, flow, that feeling of being in the zone. That isn't some mystical state you have to unlock or a trick you have to learn. It's your factory setting. It is your natural state of genius. So the great secret, the ultimate paradox we've been exploring, isn't to do more. It is to allow more. To get out of your own way and trust the brilliant, effortless, and incredibly powerful system you were born with. If this journey from burnout to flow resonated with you, and you want to be part of a community that's moving beyond the hustle myth, do us a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Give this video a like. It tells the world that this is a conversation worth having. And most importantly, share it with just one person you know who feels stuck on that hamster wheel of trying harder. Finally, let's make this real. Drop a comment below and tell us, what is one small way you're going to practice allowing more in your life this week? It could be a 5-minute productive pause or simply focusing on the process, not the prize. I read every single comment and I can't wait to see how you begin to flow.